While the vast majority of enthusiasts will never take their watches deeper than the shallow end of the pool, credibility and brand heritage are often huge deals for collectors when it comes to dive watches in particular. And while the biggest names in the underwater timekeeping world, including titans like Rolex, Omega, Blancpain, Seiko, all have innumerable credentials to their aquatic pedigree, in this video, we'll be looking at 3 dive watch brands that don't get the amount of appreciation they deserve. And before we jump into this video, if you're looking for even more dive watches, be sure to check out our comprehensive guide on teddybaldassarre.com with over 60 dive watches on that list. Also, beyond that, if you want to learn how to actually use a dive watch bezel to time dives and understand all the different bezels and how they work with the different scales, we'll have a link to a helpful article down below as well, in addition to that dive watch article. First, let's begin with Doxa. So Doxa is a brand that is unquestionably for divers who appreciate watches, but perhaps more of an unknown quantity for watch enthusiasts with less aquatic tendencies. Doxa cemented its legendary diving position with the distinctive sub 300T dive watch released at Baselworld way back in 1967 to the public. Characterized by its bright dial colors, including the orange professional dial, unique cushion case shape, expanding beads of rice bracelet, and a no decompression time limits bezel that added legitimate utility, becoming a mainstay on scuba boats and in dive shops around the world. Nowadays, colorful dials are chosen solely for aesthetic purposes, but back in the day with Doxa, the orange dial professional was developed after years of research and development, testing dive watches in Lake Neuchâtel in Switzerland, where underwater visibility was being put to the test. After testing, the orange dial ended up winning out and established itself quickly as a diving legend in the years to follow. Doxa watches were utilized alongside Rolex by the US Navy in their Sea Lab trials, French Navy divers, as well as Jacques Cousteau's team of underwater explorers, making Doxa one of the most legitimate brands in the dive watch space in terms of been there, done that significance. The Doxa sub also extends beyond the world of nonfiction, being known for its exploits on the wrist of Dirk Pitt, a fictional diver featured in a series of novels by Clive Cussler, himself a serious diver, treasure hunter, and fan of Doxa watches even before becoming a famous author. Again, comparing the brand to luxury dive watch players, Doxa's modern collection is relatively attainable, starting with the sub 200 that plays on the brand's dive watches preceding the legendary sub 300 while being priced around $1,000. The sub 300T that comes around $1,900 is the modern professional diver from the brand with 1,200 meters of water resistance, a helium escape valve, an expanding clasp, with a slightly more expensive sub 300 offering a more retro format and a COSC certification for around $2,500. And of course, all of Doxa's watches are still available in a wide range of bright colors, each with their own distinctive naming convention. And if you're a true fan of historical diving and dive watches in general, Doxa is the brand you need to know with its unique design format that you'll either love or hate. Now moving to our next brand, we have probably one of, if not the most underrated dive watch brand of all time, and that is Zodiac. And the big reason for me saying that so emphatically is the year that this brand created their iconic dive watch. Now Zodiac has a name with deep diving roots dating back to the earliest days of underwater timekeeping. Jumping back to the mid 20th century and the birth of dive watches as we know it today, Zodiac was right there with its Seawolf being released in 1953 alongside the more celebrated brands like Blancpain with their 50 Fathoms and Rolex with their Submariner, forming a trio of watches that are recognized as being the forefathers of all modern dive watches. Surprisingly, at the time, the original Seawolf was priced right in line with its more luxurious counterparts and also offered a smaller case and wearing experience positioned more in line with the established norms of the era, quickly becoming a top choice for recreational scuba divers and also serving as a common purchase by service members during the Vietnam War. The Seawolf is often associated with military divers, including the US Navy SEALs, about as much credibility as you can ask for. And today, Rolex and Blancpain have risen to the highest levels of the luxury and hype culture. The Zodiac Seawolf now generally is known for their Super Seawolf, remains attainable in comparison with starting prices around $1,200. The modern Seawolf comes in with a versatile 40mm diameter, ceramic insert, wide variety of bezel and dial color combinations, limited editions, and Swiss calibers coming from STP. For those that are seeking more of a heritage approach to the Seawolf, you can go for the skin version that offers a 39mm case and aesthetics directly borrowed from the original Seawolf models of the early 1950s. Moving into our final brand on this list here, we have Certina, founded way back in 1888 by a pair of brothers, Adolf and Alfred Kurth. in Grenchen, Switzerland. Now, while it's not necessarily well known, especially here in the United States, the brand does exist on the radar for many vintage dive watch fans as a result for its associations with Tektite, a US government underwater habitat project taking place in 1969 and 1970, as well as its use by Royal Australian Navy divers throughout the 1970s. To be suitable pieces of kit in these instances, there can't be any concern of failure. And to do this, Certina was able to achieve it by a 1959 development where Certina unveiled their DS collection. This concept involved surrounding the movement with an encapsulating shock-absorbing ring that would prevent impacts and other taxing conditions from interrupting optimal timekeeping, essentially offering a free-floating like effect. In addition, the crown system had its own proprietary approach for offering a watertight seal, enabling 200 meters of water resistance in a decade when dive watches were really just getting off the ground. Even if you are aware of the brand's historical subsea exploits, what tends to go unnoticed is how Certina has retained much of its solid reputation of dive watches with its modern collection. You could look at heritage options like the DSPH 200M and 500M, both of which are updated takes on historic Certina references that have been upgraded with more modern finishing standards, sapphire crystals, better lume, Powermatic 80 calibers with those extended power reserves, and relatively short lug-to-lug lengths that help them wear smaller than what the diameter might indicate. And then for the more modern options and designs, you would then look at the DS Action Diver collection. This is an ISO 6425 compliant model family, which is available with either 38 millimeters or 43 millimeter case diameters. And probably their best characteristic, the fact that they're not asking for an arm and a leg for the watches, being priced well under $1,000. But all right, guys, that's my video here today looking at some underrated dive watch brands. I wanted to feature these brands just because I think many times we talk about the same brands over and over again when it comes to dive watches. You talk about Rolex, Omega, Blancpain, Tudor, Seiko, when there are other brands that have contributed a lot to the whole category of dive watches that should be getting some more love. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell icon, really would appreciate that. Also check out TeddyBaldassarre.com, authorized dealer of 30 brands, quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support, and a full factory warranty for all the products that we offer. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.